All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces, like you always do. And you don't mean to be cruel, you never even knew about the heartache I've been going through. Well, I try to forget you, girl, just so hard to do. Every time you do that thing you do.
And welcome one and all to the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, and then the show is repeated in its entirety from 2 until 6, right here, live from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the all-new X Zone Broadcast Network. If you'd like to give us a call, 1-800-610-7035. That is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Now, if you're a real X Zone junkie, we have X Zone playing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year at www.xzonetv.com. On tonight's show, I'll be speaking with Martha Jette, Jennifer Robbins, Eric Stearns, and Doug Elwell. And Doug and I will be talking about the astronomical side of the legendary Planet X. Eric and I will be talking about wackos in the UFO field. Jennifer Robbins and I will be talking about paranormal activity. And my guest this hour is a good friend from Hamilton, Ontario herself, Martha Jette. And Martha is a former newspaper and magazine editor who has held a strong interest in the paranormal since she experienced a vision at the age of 7. Now, throughout her 60 years, she has had a number of paranormal experiences, including seeing spirits, predictive dreams, and a near-death episode. Today, she is retired and has written a number of books, including Glimpses, True Stories of the Paranormal, and Glimpses 2, It Could Happen to You, which contains 90 amazing but true tales from the world, from around the world, on everything from ghosts and hauntings to past lives, reincarnations, angels, demons, ESP premonitions, predictive dreams, and much more. Her most recent effort, written with co-writer Don Coldclosier, is called Totally Sacred, the complete book on haunted houses that includes personal stories from folks who lived in the haunted houses and how to determine and or document if your home is indeed haunted, who to call for help, and what ghost hunters do, and much more. Her website, www.totallyscared.synthesite.com. That's totallyscared.synthasite.com. And joining me now from Hamilton, Ontario is Martha Jette. And Martha, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad, except I thought you were retired. You're working harder now, it seems, at writing than you were when you were in the newspaper industry.
I know, they call it retirement, but it's not really. Not when you're a writer. You just want to keep on doing it.
Where does your love from the paranormal come, and have you written any other books outside of the paranormal genre?
Yes, I've written a number of books. I wrote a children's book called Talking to My Angel, which is about a little girl and her own guardian angel. And I've also written a novel based on a true story of child abuse called Playing with the Devil. a fiction spy novel called The Man with Magic Spectacles. And I'm trying to think.
That's how many.
What else did I write?
Well, listen, you and I are going to be talking today about the paranormal, things that go bump in the night, and much more. So, Martha, please stand by. You and I have to take our first commercial break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight here on the X-Zone is Martha Jette. And we're going to be talking about, as I said, about reincarnation, past lives, hauntings, ghosts, demons, ESP, premonitions, predictive dreams, and much more. This is the X-Zone on the all-new X-Zone Broadcast Network, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 1-800-610-7035 is our toll-free worldwide number. That's 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, you can watch and listen to the X-Zone 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year at xzonetv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break with Martha Jette as we continue right here in the X-Zone on the all-new X-Zone Broadcast Network. 1-800-610-7035 is our toll-free number worldwide. Email is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And to watch and listen to the X-Zone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, xzonetv.com. Martha, what are some of the reasons that you have discovered and other researchers have discovered over the years that a house may indeed be haunted?
Well, there are a number of reasons why a house may be haunted. There may be a resident spirit that's someone who lived there before you and loves the place and just doesn't want to leave. And usually that type of spirit is really nothing to worry about. And quite often we live with them and we don't even know it. They also might remain because they have unfinished business of some kind. Perhaps they died traumatically and want to pass on some sort of message about what happened. And some don't even know they've passed over, so they just keep doing what they always did. And this is when you see its spirit continually doing the same thing over and over. It could be a visiting spirit, perhaps a loved one bringing you a message or just wanting to let you know they're all right. You can bring home spirits with you if you visit haunted sites, cemeteries, places like that. You can bring spirits into your house through using a Ouija board, holding seances, or other divination ceremonies. It may not be your house at all. It may be that your house is sitting on property that is a former Indian burial site, or a site of a battle where many soldiers died. It could also be things brought into the house, particularly people who go to antique stores and resale shops. They may bring home a painting or a doll or a mirror or a piece of jewelry that has a spirit attached to it. So there's lots of ways that a house can become haunted.
How do you know if your house is really haunted or if you're just imagining things? And, because the mind does pull tricks on us.
Yes, it certainly does. And it may be hard to tell whether you're dealing with an actual spirit or simply an imprint, which happens where it's like a holographic replay over and over again of some particular scene back in history, perhaps a tragic event that's imprinted on the environment. So what you have to do, or you should do, is try to do a little investigating yourself to see if you actually have a spirit in the house.
What's the difference between a spirit and a ghost?
Spirit and a ghost. Well, a spirit is obviously someone who was alive and is now passed over. Some people call that a ghost too. I don't like that term particularly.
Why is that?
Go ahead.
I said, why is that? Why don't you like that term?
I don't, because it's reminiscent of the old ghost movies, you know, where they made up a lot of stuff for a movie about a haunting or whatever. And there's a part in this book where we discuss that, the difference between reality and haunted house movies and the way they're portrayed in the movies.
Is there a big difference?
Is there a what?
Is there a big difference in between the reality of a haunted house and the portrayal in a movie?
Well, usually it's blown way out of proportion. You know, most hauntings are not that severe. You run across some cases that are, but for the most part, the ghosts are not like chasing you or trying to beat you up or whatever like they show in movies.
Well, how about the reality TV shows that are on now? A&E, for example, has a ton of them, and it's all this night shot vision that they're using. It's all this scary, screamy stuff. It's it's a farce as far as I'm concerned. What's your opinion on it?
Well, I watched some of them. Paranormal State is pretty good because they go in and when they do their investigation, they also try to look for things that might be alternative causes that seem like a haunting, but they're not. And also, if they do find resident spirits there, they try to do something about it, you know, to help them go to the other side. A lot of the shows don't. A lot of the shows that I don't like is where they try to instigate spirits.
Yeah.
Try to make them mad.
Right.
And then when something happens, they get all upset. Like, well, what do you expect, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how do you suggest people go out and determine for themselves whether or not they really have a ghost in the house or if it's just their imagination playing tricks on them?
Well, there's some simple things you can do first. Like if your lights are flickering, which can happen with a haunting, check to make sure that there's no problem with the wiring.
Right.
If you feel dizzy and nauseous in certain areas of the house, check for gas leaks or perhaps even mold, which can be very toxic and make you feel ill. If you hear noises on the roof, make sure there's no tree branches up there hitting anything. If there are cold spots, check for vents and other sources where there could possibly be the source of a draft. So you rule out everything you can before you start your investigation.
Okay, now, we've done all the checking. We can't find anything wrong. What's the next step?
Okay, well, before you even begin investigating, you need to have some equipment. Most of it people have in their homes, like a good digital camera, perhaps a tape recorder to capture EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena of disembodied spirits. If you have a video camera, you might be able to catch something on that. But before you even start, make sure you ask for protection from whatever is your source of goodness. For me, it's God. Someone else, it might be their spirit guide or who knows. But you want to have that level of protection around you before you do any investigating.
But what do we have to be
And also-
protected from? What?
There are instances where people have been hurt. Perhaps throwing stones or other items, pushing, slapping,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. It can happen. But these are rare cases, but they do need to be considered. So just to be on the safe side, it's good to
But
to do that.
if we can't see ghosts, if ghosts are non-physical forms, then how can somebody be slapped by a non-existent form?
Well, that's a question that a lot of people ask. Ghosts draw energy from the environment around them to even be able to show themselves. And the more energy they can draw, the more power they have.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible. I know of a number of cases where people have been pushed or hit and so on. So.
But have you ever witnessed this yourself, or is what you're the information that you have is just basically hearsay?
I've interviewed people right here around Hamilton
Yeah.
who have had this happen to them. So, I kind of have to take their word for it. But I've read many other cases as well, so it must be happening somewhere.
Now, why is it that these spirits decide to use physical violence against someone if they themselves are the trespassers and not the person who is alive and in this reality?
Well, if it's their home, say a person lived in their home and they were very territorial, they didn't even like people walking on their grass, it was their home, belonged to them, and they were very protective of it. And then strangers come into the house and they're living there and going about their daily activities and perhaps changing things in the house. Often activity will start when someone moves into an older home and they start remodeling. The spirit who's lived there for, say, 50 years or whatever, they see this and they don't like it. They don't want things changed.
So why doesn't the
So
spirit...
they could react.
So why doesn't the spirit just move on to the light and enjoy the rest of eternity?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Why some of them get stuck here, there's the variety of reasons that I said, but it wouldn't be something I'd want to do.
No, me neither. I'm looking for the long rest and the enjoyable time that we hear about. Mind you,
Oh, me too.
We don't know if
Me too.
we don't know if it's real or if it's just a myth in order to give us something to look forward to after we pass on. And
Well, some people when they pass over, they don't have any particular strong beliefs about anything. Like maybe they're an atheist, maybe they just never bothered with believing in anything. Type of person who has to see it to believe it, kind of thing. My father was like that. I don't know. I'm hoping he's in the beyond, enjoying himself, but you just never know in those cases.
that's true. We never, ever know. When we come back from this commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour that we have to take right now, Martha, I'd like to talk to you about your experiences, your experience as a child and how it profoundly affected your life. And if other people listening tonight here on the X Zone have had experiences, even though it may be 10, 15, 20 years ago, what should they do in order to validate what they believe they've seen, believe what they have felt, and maybe what they've heard? Martha, Jette, and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the X Zone continues, right here live from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the all-new X Zone Broadcast Network. Don't go away.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Sun goes down on a silky day, quarter moon walking through the Milky Way. Oh, you and me, baby, we could think of something to do. It's the right time of the night. The stars are winking above. It's the right time of the night, making love. No use.
Welcome back, everyone. Martha Jette is my special guest. Martha and I are talking about hauntings, ESP. We're talking about demons, and we're going to be talking about Ouija boards. Martha is an author of several books. We're going to get more into that. She is based here in Hamilton, Ontario. Now, before we went to the commercial break in the news, I had asked you about how do you know if your house is really haunted or if it's just a figment of your imagination, and then I sidetracked you. So I'd like you to get back to that question and answer it, if you don't mind.
Okay, if you've ruled out all natural or normal causes for strange things happening in your home, but you still see lights going on and off, perhaps doors opening and closing by themselves, appliances starting up or shutting down, you hear voices, you notice odd smells like perhaps cigarettes or perfume, if you've captured images on film or video, or if you've captured voices on tape, then you usually have a bona fide ghost.
Now, do ghosts have any odor that comes with them? Do they make any, how do they make any appearance noises before they manifest, or do they just pop, there they are?
Usually there are other signs in the beginning. Perhaps it's a woman who lived in the home that liked to cook.
Mm-hmm.
You might smell food cooking when nothing's actually cooking. If it's a gentleman who liked cigars, you might smell that. That sort of thing.
Okay, how about children? Are there a lot of ghosts that are children, and how do you know how old a ghost is? Because kids are pretty rambunctious. Do they act different from adult ghosts?
Yeah, usually it will be a tugging on your arm or your pants. Perhaps you hear scurrying, footsteps running around like little children do. Children like to move things and play with things, so you might find things missing and then showing up later somewhere else. That's a few of the examples.
All right, so we've established that my house is haunted. What's the next step?
Okay. There's one other thing you can do first that would be helpful before you call in investigators, and that would be to try to find out the history of both the house and the property. You might uncover some information that will give you a clue as to what happened there. You could also go through, if you think that it may be, say, a burial ground, you might want to look up old newspaper clippings, things like that. There's a lot of reasons, really. Anyway, once you realize you have a ghost and you don't think you can cohabitate nicely with it, then you can call in a ghost hunting group that can come in and hopefully verify your findings and figure out a way to do something about it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of wackos out there. not only in the world of UFOs, but also in ghost busting and ghost hunting, ghost
Yes,
researchers,
there are, and there's a lot
whatever you want to call them. So how do you know if you've got a legitimate person or a person that's playing minus a few cans in their six-pack?
Well, probably the bigger problem is some are not as professional as others in what they do. So it might be good to go on to sites where these types of things are talked about and ask around which groups are more reliable than others. Mm-hmm. One thing for sure, you don't ever pay for an investigator to come in. The bona fide groups don't charge you. And if you feel uncomfortable with a group that does come or one of the members of the group, then tell them, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work out. Don't allow them to stay in your home.
How about bringing in members of the clergy? You see on TV that the priest comes in with the holy water and the crucifix, and there's a whole bunch of going-ons in the house, and the house is then eradicated of any ghosts or spirits. Does that really work, or is that Hollywood at its best?
Hollywood's done quite a number on that one, but actually, it can be done if it's done properly. Usually the clergy is called in if you're dealing with something other than a normal spirit, mm-hmm. Some sort of entity, particularly an evil entity that's somehow gotten into your home, perhaps through, they talk about portals. I don't know if they actually exist or not, but some say they do. Also, it could be say a teenager who's deep into devil worship. They could draw in something really awful. So in a case like that, they would call in the clergy to deal with it, because you need a higher power, to get the force out of there.
So you need something better than a ghostbuster who really doesn't know what he's doing. You know what I can't understand about a lot of these so-called ghostbusters is they remind me of the old CB radio clubs of the 70s, where everybody had a CB radio in their car, and they'd all meet somewhere, sit in their cars, and talk to each other on the CB radio when the car was just 5 feet away from each other. It seems that the majority, and I think I'm being kind here when I say the majority, I'd put it a lot higher, but the majority of these people who are now involved in the paranormal fit nowhere else in society. They're a little clique of their own. Well, the
truth of the matter is a lot of these ghost hunters, members of ghost hunting groups, they all have day jobs. Mm-hmm. It's something they've taken up on the side, and usually it could be because perhaps something happened in their own life and they want to explore the paranormal further.
But why don't they go to school and take bona fide courses in physics, in biology, in anatomy, psychology, before they go out there and call themselves ghost investigators? Because they don't know the first thing about investigating anything, let alone a spirit of which they have no knowledge at all.
Well, there are ghost hunting courses. Now, I don't know how mm-hmm. good they are. Perhaps it gets into more about how to use the equipment during an investigation, things like that. What to look for when you go into a home.
Right.
Things like that.
Do you think that the ghost hunting craze will subside soon, or do you see it getting much more popular?
Well, judging by the number of television shows and public interest out there, I think it's going to become more popular.
That's what scares me, and I'll be honest with you.
A lot of people are searching these days,
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The number of television shows out there on ghosts, I think, is going to work against anything because, you're flooding the market with a bunch of junk. Not one of the shows that I've watched, and I don't watch them very often because I think they're all a bunch of crap, and it's a waste of airtime and as well as a waste of somebody's time watching it, is that you get this green shot, you get a psychic who doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, you get screaming kids or screaming adults who are lousy actors, really cheap and cheesy special effects, and nothing is ever accomplished at the end. So, I think that people are going to finally wake up one day and say, what the hell am I wasting my time on this crap for? But that's just my opinion.
You could be right. You could be right. I don't know. I watch the shows. I'm interested mostly in what they do find.
Yeah. Well, what's the most amazing thing that you have found yourself? Because you've been investigating the paranormal yourself, and we don't have to talk about TV shows to get your perspective of it. And what have you seen, or what do you believe is the most significant piece of evidence to support claims of the paranormal?
Well, I mentioned before about seeing is believing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them.
What do they look like?
And, the first one I saw was a fella that I had known who showed up walking through my bedroom door one night just before I was, as I was pulling the covers over myself to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked right in. He looked sort of sparkly white, but there was enough of an outline to him that I could see who it was. And he walked in. It was right beside my bed. He was like maybe a foot away from me. And he bent over as if to pick up my phone,
mm-hmm.
and then he disappeared. Now, you can't miss that. It's right in front of your face.
All right, so seeing is believing. Now, prior to this sighting that you had you thought of him recently? Was he fresh in your mind? Was there some reason why he had come to you?
Well, at one point, I was in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
And things didn't work out. He decided to go out west for work.
Right.
And I hadn't heard from him in months before this happened. So I don't know whether he died or if he was perhaps astral traveling in his sleep.
So, all right, now you just brought up a very interesting point. So if the person was not deceased that you saw, how do we justify that sighting? Now, you said astral traveling, but how do we differentiate?
I'm guessing. Yeah. I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know what happened to him.
You didn't investigate it? You didn't check it out to see why, who, what, when, where, why?
No, I haven't been able to. I haven't been able to locate him.
I see. So is it possible that some of the ghosts that are being seen are actually people having out-of-body experiences or doing astral projection?
It's possible, yes. It's possible, but
so how do we know
I think mm-hmm. if your grandma Wilma died 2 days ago and she shows up at the foot of your bed, that's her.
It's either that
you know what I mean?
Well, you see, I would look at it and say, is it really her, or is it my own mind projecting her image there because I miss her so?
You could think that, I suppose, but I don't believe that.
Why do you think people would rather look at the paranormal than to look at common sense?
I've always been a common sense person, despite everything else that's happened. I mean, I worked for newspapers.
No,
for years,
I wasn't talking about
facts. You know.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the millions of other who, out of the clear blue sky, want to be paranormal investigators and have taken such an interest in the paranormal. I like the way that you think.
Like
where
I said, it usually begins with someone who's had some experiences themselves,
mm-hmm.
and that's drawn their interest in it in the first place.
But how many other paranormal researchers or authors like yourself would actually say, that it may not be a ghost, it may be somebody having an out-of-body experience, it may be somebody who's having an astral projection experience? Other people would say, no, it was a ghost. I know it's a ghost. It's a ghost. It's a ghost. It's a ghost. And yet you say, because you are the kind of person you are, that it could be an out-of-body experience. It could be, somebody doing astral projection. So why do you think that
Residual.
or residual? Why? So, my question to you was, why do you think so many people that are in the paranormal now are so dead set fast on their belief that it's got to be a ghost or these orbs, that has to be a spirit, that there's no leniency?
Orbs are the worst. Orbs are the worst. I mean, all you have to do is kick up dust in a room and you got it. It's full of orbs.
Exactly.
You have to be very careful with that. And some of the shows that I've been watching, they do rule out a haunting in a lot of cases. They're not there specifically to say, yes, this place is haunted to make people happy or whatever.
Right. Where do you see ghost hunting or the paranormal, the investigation of the paranormal in the future? We've got about 60 seconds for your answer on this.
Well, people are dying every second around the world, so, it's not going to stop. As I said, there's a lot of people who live with ghosts and don't even know it because they're just not active. But for those who have spirits who are active and interrupting their daily lives, they want to know what's going on.
All right, stand by. Martha, you and I have to take our final break. Martha Jette's our special guest, Exonation. Here's the website to contact Martha. www.totallyscared.synthasite.com. Totally Scared Synthasite.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We're coming to you live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our main network, the all-new X Zone Broadcast Network. Don't go away.
No use talking when the shadows fall.
The sound of your footsteps telling me that you're near. Your soft, gentle motion, babe, brings out a need in me that no one can hear except in my midnight confession. When I tell all the world that I love you, in my midnight confession. When I say all the things that I want to. I love you. What a little gold ring you wear on your hand makes me understand.
Still to come on tonight's show, we are going to be speaking with Jennifer Robbins, Eric Stearns, and Doug Elwell. My guest this hour is Martha Jette. We're talking about ghosts, and Martha is the author of, Glimpses, True Stories of the Paranormal, and Glimpses Too, It Could Happen to You, which contains 90 amazing stories, but true paranormal tales from around the world on everything from ghosts and hauntings to past lives, reincarnation, angels, demons, ESP, premonitions, predictive dreams, and more. Once again, her website is www.totallyscared.synthasite.com. Are there other professionals that could be called in to help investigate a haunted house? I mean, besides the minister, local town engineers, and Ghostbusters?
Often they'll bring in a psychic, and I know what you're going to say here, Rob, before I even say it. But if they can verify anything that's already been documented by the use of their own equipment,
Right.
then it just lends more credibility to what's actually happening in the home.
Is it possible that the equipment that is used by researchers into the paranormal are actually their own readings that they're picking up and have nothing to do with any paranormal event?
Well, if they're using closed-circuit video surveillance equipment, they'll leave it in a room on its own to see if it picks up anything. They have something called a K2 meter that they use to see if they can get responses from a spirit. The lights will flicker when they ask a question, and they ask, to flicker so many times or whatever. They have to do it, when they go in and do an investigation, it's not like 2 hours. It's all night. Like perhaps 8-10 hours at a place. So they're sitting around a lot waiting for something to happen. But when something does, that's when they know they've got something. They also use IR UV infrared strobe system that captures any fast-moving activity in darkness. The theory behind this one is that spirits move at a faster rate than normal, and the infrared can catch them. I've seen this on a couple of the shows where they've used this, and something will dart right across the screen very fast, but it catches it as a red outline of a person. So that's one of the things they use.
Martha, I hate to do this, but we've run out of time for today. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. Continued success with your writing, and let our listeners know how they can find you and get more information on your books.
I have a number of websites. I don't know which one to pick. Probably best to go to Boomers Write, http www.boomers-write.com/Martha.
All right, Martha, thanks.
.html.
All right, Martha, take care of yourself. We'll be speaking to you, and once again, the very best to you in the new year. Martha Jette's been my guest. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break after the news as we continue right here in the X Zone.
Stay